Hey, you might have heard about agility, business agility, enterprise agility, some kind of framework to help deliver in an agile way, or for an organization to become more agile. You might have heard about agile mindsets versus agile behaviors versus agile methodologies, all these different kinds of things. So today I want to introduce you to the business agility framework that I've developed over a number of years, and it's really gets to the essence of what we're trying to do with agile for an organization. And it applies to individuals, teams, and an organization-wide context. Hello, I'm Andrew. I help people like you explore how the human mind works and impacts our workplaces and our lives. I tend to deep dive into topics of human biases and business agility. Welcome, and today we're going to have a look at my business agility framework. Let's get into it. So let's have a look at the framework, and we start in the center with business agility. And so that's a means to an end. So the end might be something around saving money, making money for the organization. Let's take an organizational context for this. It can be applied to individuals, teams, departments, and organizations. But it's probably just more straightforward to look at it in terms of an organization. So for the organization, it might be making shareholders more money. It might be saving lives, it could be changing the world, whatever that might be. Business agility is helping support that. Business agility is not the thing that you're going after solely. It's all because it's going to support whatever you're trying to actually do. If we move out from the center just one layer, we've got deep insight, intelligent decision making, and rapid implementation. So deep insight is where you're trying to gain insight internally to the organisation and externally to the organisation. So what are you doing inside the business across the different departments, where the capabilities are, and then what's happening outside of the organisation. And that changes constantly. So we look at that and we see new competitors coming into the market, we see the products that they're releasing, products that we're releasing, and so it's this constant change around that. Intelligent decisions then are driven from that deep insight. If we've got the data, we gain the insights, and then we can make intelligent decisions. So we're not talking about haphazard, gut feel, roll the dice, spin the bottle, whatever it might be, to make a decision. We're looking at intelligent decisions and not getting caught up in random acts of decision making. So they're the intelligent decisions, but then intelligent decisions, even the best decisions, do degrade over time because things change, and the insights we gain change as well. So things are always moving and always evolving with business agility, and it is designed to handle that. And the way it handles that is it gets those deep insights, gets those intelligent decisions off the back of those fairly promptly, and then uses those intelligent decisions to rapidly implement something. And that something leads to further insights. It could be getting something out into market. It could be not even as dramatic as that. It could be just taking a position on a certain thing, doing a piece of research, whatever it might be, to then gain more insight and then to make further intelligent decisions, and again, implementing something, doing something, not just always plan, and then maybe do. Plan, do, really getting that momentum. So if we now take a look at the next layer out, we see that to get deep insight, there's a couple of key things here, key elements that are really important. And of course, there are a lot of things that are important to gain deep insight. But what I've done in this framework is I've taken the two most important, most critical, and for deep insight, this is curiosity and collaboration. These will actually help the others. These will help intelligent decision making and rapid implementation. So they're not exclusive to deep insight, but they are critical to deep insight. So, curiosity. We have to be curious. If we stop being curious, we're not gaining any more insight. It's almost like the old person who says, that's it, I've had enough of technology, wherever I've gotten to now, that's enough. I'm not going to take on any extra things. And so they mightn't have adopted the use of email. They mightn't have adopted use of online banking. They mightn't have done any of those things. So they kind of stopped themselves in an extreme example. So being curious and asking why and trying to understand and uncover things is really important. And equally as important is that collaboration, because as one person, we can be as curious as we like, but we don't have multiple vantage points that we do if we actually collaborate with, say in an organisation, we're collaborating with 20 other people, or even more and more and more. So collaboration actually magnifies the goodness of that curiosity and drives that really deep insight. So then if we're looking at intelligent decision making, what elements really drive that? So there it's clarity of purpose and distributed authority. So clarity of purpose is understanding, well, what are we trying to do with this decision? We need that context to make the decision. Are we putting out something, a new product into the market? Are we trying to gain an advantage over a competitor? Are we trying to make things better for our colleagues so that we have a happier workplace? Well, what are we trying to do? You know, when we're making that decision, and this could apply to anything that we do for ourselves or for an organisation, what's the purpose of that decision? And then if we know the purpose, because if we're making decisions and we don't really know the purpose, which does happen and happens a lot, it shouldn't be happening ever, but it happens a lot. We're just making what are decisions but aren't intelligent and a lot of the time are missing the mark. So really important. Once we know the purpose for why we're making the decision, then distributed authority is really important as well. And so what that means is the person making the decision, ideally they're as close to the front line as possible, as close to that coalface of where the decision is going to impact and the information around that decision. So in the example where we have a general manager sitting in an office somewhere, and we have other managers or directors and managers under that person, and then through to team leaders, and then we have some, say, call center staff. If we have an issue or something to be decided around the call center, the best, most well-positioned people to make that decision would be, say, the supervisors hands-on helping the call center staff do their jobs. It's not then being 3 or 4 or 5 times removed up into, what we might call an ivory tower, where someone's looking down on it and making a decision and then letting everyone implement on that decision. And the reason why the clarity of purpose comes into this is really importantly is because at the coalface, we're going to make sure that the person making that decision understands that clarity of purpose, because sometimes we see a decision made at the coalface and we're like, that's not a great decision. It's because that person hadn't had the purpose shared with them. They didn't know what the strategic need was or what we were trying to do with that particular plan. So it's sharing those strategies with people all across the organisation, and particularly making sure that it goes to the decision makers at the coalface, and then distributing that authority to make decisions to those people as well. And allowing them, that doesn't mean they have to make it in isolation and they're sweating on the fact that they've never made such a big decision before, and what do? They can refer to other people and ask for advice, but when it comes down to it, allowing them to make that decision and then stand by that decision and go with it. take accountability with that. And again, not as a blaming mechanism, not so where you can say, well, as soon as they take it, they're going to be the sacrificial lamb that gets blamed because they made the wrong decision. But to actually be able to go with it, take the position, make the decision, and then deal with what comes from that. So then we've got the intelligent decision made, rapid implementation. So two things there, critical elements for rapid implementation are trust and tendency to act. So trust is really around trusting that person or that team to get on and just do this thing. If we don't have that trust, it's this micromanagement, letting someone do a little bit, one task, and coming back and asking some superior again, oh, what do we do now? Another little piece, or only giving that team enough information, just enough to be able to do something, but probably not even doing it that well. So it's trusting that team, once there's a plan, once there's a decision made, these kinds of things, to get on and just do it and make it happen. And that's a lot quicker than having to, again, go up a hierarchy and back down again, or referring to 15 different people, we might call red tape within an organisation, to actually get on and do that thing. Because if we take too long, again, these things are decaying and decreasing in value over time the longer these things take, this rapid implementation. The world is changing constantly. And even if our organisation is stale and slow moving, the outside world that affects that organisation is moving constantly. So trusting that team or that supervisor and those staff to get on and do that thing once that decision's been made. And the other thing we need, the other critical element, is that tendency to act. So people can get caught up in planning. And so it's important to understand here, agility is not a thing where we don't plan at all. Sometimes people that don't like business agility or maybe even agile methodology talk about, oh, there's no planning, they just do whatever. Well, there's actually a lot of planning in agility. We need to be planning, but we know that we have to adjust and pivot those plans as we go. That's the kind of the essential difference, I guess, from maybe other methodologies where you're trying to push back on changes and make them kind of difficult to incorporate. So tendency to act is around, we've got this plan, we've worked out what we need to do, now let's do it. So not second guessing and planning and replanning and recutting the plan. Sometimes we see this in organisations where we're planning and it goes to another level and we're replanning and recutting. It's trying to actually provide an environment where that particular area can have that plan and then go and execute on that and implement on that, as opposed to being so dependent on so many other plans in the organisation, having to roll them up to all these other plans, and then by the time you're ready to move on something, you've got to replan because the world's changed. So it's around, sometimes when we talk about value streams, it's about having all the things you need within a particular area to then be able to plan and then do in that area, not have all these sort of dependencies across so many areas and departments that we can't actually get a clean plan to be able to just do something on. And keep assessing as we go, but not having to get caught up in and hamstrung by all these other areas. It might be also late in planning and deferring your planning because of their decisions and whatever else. So that is, they are the two elements that really are critical to rapid implementation. Okay, so now look at the next layer out from that. And this is really how the ideal sort of stuff of business agility meets the human mind. Because if there's one thing that can really throw a spanner in the works or a cat among the pigeons, it's humans and the human mind. And when we have an organisation full of human minds, it's magnified like crazy. So this layer tries to connect the things we've talked about, the goodies of business agility, all these good things that we want to use to drive better business agility, with the human mind and how it's going to impact those things and the wants and needs of those things. And essentially what it says is we absorb, so we act in two ways, one absorbing and one accomplishing. So inwardly we absorb, and we think about things like deep insights. We absorb things there, and then we process. We make sense of them. Our mind tries to make sense of what we've absorbed, and our mind is also choosing what we absorb in many ways as well. We process and make sense of what we absorb. Then we communicate it. We're talking with others about it, and then what we need to do is we need to accomplish something. We need to act outwardly, so we're accomplishing something from it. So we're absorbing, we're processing and making sense of that, we're communicating about that, and then we're trying to accomplish, we're trying to act outwardly to accomplish something. So in our layer of biases, we hold a bias as we absorb, process, communicate, and seek to accomplish. And so we'll go into the different biases and how they work and how we counteract them in other videos, but they're with us through that, and there can be multiple biases impacting how we absorb, how we process, how we communicate, etc., etc. And then we have counterbalances. We have things that can mitigate and to look to counteract one or a number of biases. And again, this is where we'll get into those details in other videos. But essentially, you've got all these goodies you're trying to do with business agility. You've got this humanness kind of layer that connects those goodies with things that make it a little difficult, things like biases. And then you've got this other layer that says, well, actually, hey, biases are tricky, but there are some things you can do about them. And those things can be applied to one or many biases, and they help then maintain those goodies that we're trying to get from business agility. I hope you enjoyed that overview of my business agility framework, and look forward to seeing you in the next video. See ya.